Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for joining me today. Um, got a lot of interesting stuff we're going to be chatting about today. A lot going on in the world, as always. We're going to be chatting about how much Democrats love fraud. It's a lot of that going on these days. It seems like every day there's a new story about some Democrat lawmakers or NGOs siphoning off a bunch of taxpayer money into their own pockets. At least they're finally getting caught now. Who knows how many trillions of dollars these people have stolen? Anywhere from the billions of dollars in California on the high-speed rail or homelessness. I've got a whole list of them I'm going to read here in a bit. So it's just wild. If there's a government giving out money, there's a Democrat stealing it somewhere. And I think a lot of people, rightly so, think that these politicians are part and parcel of it, that they're in cahoots, they're getting kickbacks. Somehow they go from having $0 in net worth and becoming congressmen or senators and end up with hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth. So there's definitely something really shady going on. You know, Ilhan Omar, for example, she a couple years ago, her net worth was like $30,000, and now somehow it's $30 million. You know, this is just ridiculous. And the amount of fraud that's coming out is just mind-boggling, especially out of Minnesota. Minnesota is crime, fraud ridden like crazy. A lot of it's in the Somali community too. You look at the list of names of the people that they've found, and 27 names, and they're all Abdul this, and they're all Somalis. Hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud. There's some rich Somali guy somewhere living over in Somalia, driving who knows what, living in a mansion right now. But it's just wild. It keeps getting worse and worse. So today I'm going to do a live call in. If anybody wants to call in, there's the link. I pinned it in the comments. Let me see how it works on X. I'm not sure. That's on YouTube. So yeah, I'd be happy to, if you guys want to call in, we can chat. It might be a fun time. So just recently now there has been another case of fraud. So this here says in a bombshell revelation, U.S. Attorney Bill Saley just exposed that California Democrat officials oversaw massive homelessness fraud. It has resulted in millions of dollars worth of fraudulent spending, billions of California tax dollars intended to solve homelessness. And you know what happened? So this started a few years ago. They're going to fix homelessness by throwing a bunch of money at it. And in California's standard way of doing things, they actually increased the number of homelessness after they spent billions of dollars fixing it. Does this make any sense to anybody? Why do we keep giving these politicians so much money? They don't actually accomplish anything. Which reminds me, the government's been shut down now for a couple weeks. How has anybody's life even been affected other than the people who work for the federal government? You know, how is it that we still have roads to drive on? How is it that there's still gas in my car? How is it that my car still runs and my house and the heating and the air conditioning and the windows still work and I still have food in my fridge and the grocery store still have food? How is that possible with the government being shut down? Right? So it's kind of it points out a lot that it's all kind of just a sham. They want to act like the government's a lot more important than what it is, the federal government. Now, local government, state government, that's much more important. That does have an immediate effect quickly. The federal government, though, half of what they do is just waste money on stupid shit and get rich doing it. So let's watch this clip here and about the mismanagement of funds in California when the homelessness. It's just asinine.
of where billions of California tax dollars intended to solve homelessness ended up. California has spent more than $24 billion over the last 5 years with little to no progress in solving our homelessness epidemic. California state officials failed to provide meaningful oversight over the individuals who received most of these funds, and they had little to no answers to the public's demand for accountability. Well, that accountability starts today. Today, we are announcing significant developments into our investigation. We're making public 2 criminal cases relating to 2 separate real estate developers who were involved in misappropriating millions of state funds intended to combat homelessness. This morning, federal agents arrested Cody Holmes, a 31-year-old Beverly Hills resident and the former CFO of Shangri-La Industries, a downtown LA-based developer of affordable housing, for defrauding the Home Key program that is administered by the state of California. The program awarded grant money, which included federal tax dollars, for specific projects to convert motels into housing for the homeless and to operate the units. By April of 2022, Shangri-La Industries, where Holmes was the CFO, had co-applied with multiple California cities to convert numerous properties in California, including a location in Thousand Oaks. The state asked for proof that the company had the financial capacity to build all the projects. In response, Holmes and Shangri-La knowingly submitted fake bank statements which claimed to show that the developer had about $160 million on deposit. Not only were the bank statements fake, our investigation shows that Shangri-La and its affiliates had nowhere near the amount of money they claimed they had in the fake bank statements.
So this is just the developer portion of it. So, okay, $24 billion gone, homelessness increased. This is only a few $1 million of it. Where in the world is all this money? Where does it go? What did it get spent on? I mean, how do you spend billions of dollars and not get anything done? You know, you can only spend so much money on surveys and, you know, environmental studies and things like that. How do you spend billions of dollars? Where does it go? I don't get it. You know, and one of the things that Gavin Newsom likes to say is that California is a net positive taxpayer, so they pay in more federal tax than they receive from the federal government. I cannot. That cannot possibly be true. I know that there's stats that show that. I guarantee you that something is not being included in those stats. Something like NGOs, where they siphon the money from an NGO that's in Arizona or Washington, D.C., and the money goes to an NGO that's in California, and they're just pumping this money right back into them. And then they're wasting it, giving it away to their friends who run these NGOs and nonprofits, who get paid $700,000 a year to run a nonprofit that has no employees and never accomplishes anything. And this is the government that everybody's so concerned about opening back up. Why? Because their friends are missing out on their paychecks. You know, how is everybody not up in an outrage over how disrespectful they are with all of the money that they spend? You know, and it's nobody's watching over these people. There's going to get 2 developers are going to get in trouble for $20 million worth of fraud, and then the other $23 billion worth of fraud is nothing. Gavin Newsom's not going to do anything about it. He's not going to look into it. He's not going to even care. So this is just one little instance. I mean, this is massive instance, but this is not an isolated thing. This has been coming up more and more and more. But it just here, let me read this list. This is just from key cases from 2024 and 2025. So this is like a year's worth of Democrat fraud. California homelessness audit, that's this one right here, 24 billion. California key home grant fraud, millions misused in home, millions more misused in homelessness funding. New York PPE procurement, millions in kickbacks and contracts fraud that's been charged. New York medical transport / Medicare fraud, over 700,000 in false billing. New York shelter construction contracts, $12 million in fraud. New York City nonprofit vendor fraud, multiple cases, millions in fraud. Minnesota feeding our future. This is the one where there was like all Somalis involved in it. $250 million in COVID nutrition fund fraud, and they've been convicted. Now, where did all that money go? How much of that money went into Ilhan Omar's coffers? I guarantee you some of it had to. How does she get $30 million net worth? Minnesota Housing Stabilization Services, $8 million in fraudulent claims. Minnesota Autism Clinic, 14 million. Minnesota aggregate exposure, possibly $1 billion plus across all the programs. $1 billion of fraud. Minnesota is turned into a cesspool, a third world banana republic nonsense. They are just throwing money away like crazy. There is no way this is sustainable. The normal people who live outside of Minneapolis need to take over control of Minnesota again. You got these crazy nut jobs like Tim Walz, who has no qualifications and no talents whatsoever. He's overseeing all this massive fraud. I don't think he's implicated in it. I don't think that he's probably getting rich off of this. I think he's just such a moron with such a he has the what do they call that, sort of like this empathy, that this compassion that just like allows everybody to take advantage of you, and you still get to feel like a good person because you're not actually holding anybody accountable. You're not enforcing rules. You're not doing any of that kind of stuff. And so he can pat himself on the back for being a good guy because he's not angry and he's not mad and he's not, but he's wasting everybody's money. I never will understand the Democrat propensity to protect people doing the wrong things and then think it's wrong to help the people doing the right things, right? So like there's lots of victims in this scenario, all the people who paid the money in. And yet he won't hold anybody accountable, and he won't make sure that there's the accountability offices and oversight committees and that they're doing their jobs and that they're not being fraudulent, because that would be mean. That would be authoritarian. That would be a bad thing to make sure that all these taxpayers don't become victims. They don't see it that way, though. They don't see that if we convict this guy gets convicted of 13 crimes. This guy gets convicted of 33 felonies and crimes and breaking and entering and all this kind of stuff. They don't see it as, well, what about all those victims that was entailed? They think about the criminal and say, well, oh, we should be really nice to him because this was bad. It was his upbringing. It was his family. It was his whatever excuse they have. And they just let him back out on the street. Then he stabs somebody or robs somebody or shoots somebody, kills somebody, rapes a kid, and they don't ever think about the person who's getting raped, the person who's getting killed. Their sole focus is on the criminal and how they can best serve that guy. But that guy isn't the one who put him in office. That guy is not the one who needs protection. It's all the innocent people out there. It's like Brandon Johnson and these moron idiots in Illinois, and they're fighting so hard to keep criminals on the streets in Chicago. Why? Then you talk to the normal people who are out here trying to live their lives, trying to go to the jobs, trying to go to the corner store and get their eggs, and they're scared they're going to get shot. And Brandon Johnson and Pritzker, they don't give a damn about those people. They care about the hooligans, the 1% that's terrorizing the community, and they go to any length possible to protect that person. Why? Why do they do this? Why do they allow this massive fraud? Because they're not willing to actually hold anybody accountable or have oversight or enforce the rules. Why do they allow criminals who've been arrested dozens of times that are violent back out on the street? Because and I think it's just a fake concept that they don't even believe, but because policing's racist or something stupid like that, they don't believe that. But they believe in letting these people back out on the streets to terrorize people, and it's a guarantee that these people are going to commit another crime, and it doesn't matter to them. What is with that? Why are they so hateful of people who are following the laws, obeying the rules, trying to live their lives? They want those people to be terrorized. They want those people to live in fear every day. Can somebody call in and make this make sense to me? I don't understand how this makes sense to these idiots. Because when I think about it, instantly I think about the victims. I think, well, of course we don't want to let this guy out on the street who's already broken into 7 homes and stabbed 12 people. We don't want another person stabbed, right? We don't want those elements in our communities to where they're causing instability, to where they're making companies leave from these already primarily poor areas. So more jobs eliminated because you don't want to lock people up for constantly stealing and constantly breaking and constantly robbing and shooting. Somebody make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't think they're quite smart enough to think that if we let them out there, they're going to cause civil unrest, and then somehow that's going to help us take power. I don't know if I don't really see that as the case either. I think it's just this weird, misplaced compassion to where they're like the worst parent in the world who just lets their kids do whatever they want because it would make them a meanie parent to actually enforce any rules or curfews or bedtimes or any of that kind of stuff. And then their kids just end up to be these rotten, terrible, can't stand people. And that's what happens to these cities because that's their governing methodology. They think, well, if we're nice, then the person will turn out nice. That's not how this works. And this is why nobody with a sense of care and concern for law and law enforcement and keeping people safe, none of those people are going to stay in the Democratic Party. They're fleeing, they're running over to the Republicans because the Democrats call enforcing the laws authoritarian, fascist, Hitler. All we're doing is just enforcing the law. That's it. A guy shoots somebody, a guy robs something, a guy steals something, he goes to prison. That's the law. And then all these cities, they let these guys out with an IOU. Sign this paper, sir, that says you'll return on Thursday at 10 a.m. And of course, they never show up. Why would they? Well, and then they go and commit another crime. They get arrested, and they're like, "Now, hey, you said you were going to show up, so here, sign this paper and say that you're going to show up on next Tuesday at 11 a.m." And then they never show up. I mean, it's ridiculous. So let's look at some more of these. That was hardly even the whole list. So we got Illinois healthcare fraud. This is a national takedown. It was over $2 billion of schemes in Illinois. Is that crazy? These are just over the last 2 years. There's Illinois Medicare testing scheme, $227 million of fraud. DC nonprofit grant misuse. about $250,000 of fraud. Washington State Homelessness Authority audit. Oregon Emergency Rental Assistance, $426 million program, about $37 million in fraud. Charlotte, North Carolina, Cedric Dean Medicaid scheme, $9 million in fraud. Fargo, North Dakota, $440,000 in fraud. You know, it just goes on and on. Michigan, Dr. Sophia Toya Medicare fraud, $6 million. Michigan Home Health Agency false billing, $7.9 million. Michigan pandemic mail theft ring, $63 million. Nursing home settlement in Michigan, $4.5 million. So it's just over and over and over and over again. It's just crazy. I mean, this is where our money's going when it's not being siphoned into, you know, transgender dance classes in Tanzania or circumcisions in, you know, the region of Zambia or some stupid shit. You know, billions of money getting spent on that stuff. And you think for a second that there's not friends of these politicians who've set up NGOs in all those countries where they're sending this stupid money? Then none of this money is going where it's supposed to go. It's not going to any of this stuff. It's going into corrupt people's pockets. And that's why it's getting shut down. Finally, somebody's in charge who's going to actually take this stuff seriously. Who knows how many trillions of dollars have just been given away and nothing has been accomplished as a result. I mean, why do somebody call in and tell me, maybe you can explain this to me. Why do Democrats, why do they have such an easy time lying, cheating, and stealing, defrauding? Why do they have such an easy time letting criminals back onto the streets to wreak mayhem? And then at the same time, wonder why nobody wants to, John, the link at the top of the chat, you should be able to click on that. And hopefully it works. I think that's how it's supposed to work. So if you want to do that. You know, so they let these criminals out. They go back. They're primarily from the poor community. They go back into the poor community and they cause more havoc. And then the higher the crime rate is, no company wants to open a business there in a high crime area. Why would you? Why would anyone do that? So then there's no jobs there that are decent. There's no investment. So their housing prices, nobody wants to live there. So they never make money on their houses appreciating. You know, and it reinforces itself. And yet at the same time, these people whine and bitch and moan about these poor areas while they are actively engaged in making them and keeping them poor areas. And then those poor areas vote for those politicians. That's so messed up. That doesn't make any sense. And it's coming to an end. I think it's coming to an end. I think people are finally starting to see this nonsense. John, were you able to call? I thought I did pin my comment. Let me see here. Let me check. Let's see here. There we go. Thanks, BS. Always helping me out there. Okay. There we go, John. So now it's pinned at the top of the chat. So you should be able to just click on that and it should alert me and we can have a chat if you want. So yeah, what did I don't know. What kind of crime do Democrats dislike? I mean, it's like the only thing that if you misgender somebody, that's the biggest crime. You know, if you don't allow boys and women's locker rooms, that's the top crime. That's the biggest deal. You know, I don't think that. I don't know. I mean, but it's not going to stop anytime soon. So, speaking of fraud and crime, I've got some Zoran Mamdani stuff here. He had a debate with Cuomo, and basically, he's way in the lead here. So, yeah, let's start with that one. Who was it? CNN, I think, was talking about his lead. Yeah, right here. So he's doing well.
There is no sign that the race is tightening at all, Cape Baldwin. If anything, Zoran Mamdani's lead is getting bigger, wider, larger. You look in September in a three-way, Mamdani was at 45, Cuomo 15 points back, Curtis Lewa, the Republican, at 17. Look at where we are now. Mamdani is actually up. He's up to 49%. Then you got Cuomo at 31%, so a 15-point advantage back in September on the average. Now it is 18 points. The bottom line is this. Andrew Cuomo needs something very big to change at this particular point, unless, of course, he becomes Teddy Roosevelt overnight. Because if something doesn't change over the final 2.5 weeks of this campaign, this race is pretty much over.
What is the historical kind of precedent for a comeback like this?
Yeah, okay. So I went back through the history books, Kate Baldwin. You know I love going through my spreadsheets more than anything else. I love my girlfriend. I love my spreadsheets. I love cream soda. What happens if we look at the historical spreadsheets? Look at this. Mamdani leads by 18 points right now. Look at the largest polling average miss since 1989. You know what it was? It was 11 points. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know 11 points is less than 18 points. So if Andrew Cuomo is going to come back and win, either something like Curtis Lewa has to drop out of the race, or you need a polling miss that is nearly twice as large as the largest miss on record. So you're going to probably need something historically unprecedented for Andrew Cuomo to win this race if the polling average holds through Election Day.
There are lots of reasons why anyone picks one candidate over another, but what is some of what you're seeing why Mamdani's doing so well?
Okay, why is Mamdani doing so well? Sometimes, Kate Baldwin, politics is simple. Life is never simple, but politics can be simple. And it simply comes down to this. Mamdani is the likable guy and Andrew Cuomo isn't. This is not a case of the lesser of two evils. You look at the net favorable rating. Mamdani is at plus 15 points. Andrew Cuomo has been underwater in the average poll throughout this entire campaign.
All right. Yeah. So, you know, I'll give Mamdani credit there. He is a likable guy. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's hard to see yourself kind of having a conversation with him and having a laugh. He seems like a normal guy. But all of his ideas are just fucking stupid. They're just stupid. And they always will be. They always have been. Anybody that wants the level of socialism that he wants it's just retarded. It never works. It never will work. It can't work. It sounds nice. You know, that's how the trick works. It sounds really nice and good and fun and everything. And those people over there who are not me are going to pay for a bunch of stuff. And then I'm going to live this blissful utopian life where I'm not going to have the responsibilities that guy has, because that guy somehow is a bad guy because he's got more money. So we'll take his. And then, and obviously I'm the one who should be the one getting that money. You know, it doesn't make any sense. It disincentivizes all kinds of different things. And so this is a clip of the likable retard saying that he wants to make the buses free, and he's going to raise taxes, obviously. Not
But
that he has the
question is
power to
how
do
you'll
that.
make them free.
We will fund the revenue that would have otherwise been brought in from fares. And that's something that we would do in partnership with Albany. And I've put
How?
forward two proposals. The first is to raise taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers by 2%. That would raise $4 billion. The second
Okay.
is to raise the state's top corporate tax rate to match that of New Jersey, which would raise $5 billion.
But the question is how you'll
Okay,
make
so
them
this
free.
doesn't even make any sense. He says the $5 billion is when the state raises taxes on income. He just got nothing to do with that. The mayor of New York City. There's nothing you can do about that. But anyway, you know what's going to happen when he puts these free buses in there. These are going to become homeless encampments, basically, because why wouldn't you just go live on the bus all winter if you're homeless and in the nice warm bus? So I guarantee half of these buses are going to be full of unhoused homeless people because there's no laws, there's no rules, there's no who can be on this, who can't be on this. It's a free bus. So why wouldn't you just ride it around all day? You don't have anything else to do and you get to stay nice and warm. You can then, when people come on there, you can beg those people for money. This is exactly what's going to happen. And not only will the buses be packed full of homeless people, there will be a ton of waste and fraud that goes into funding these buses. And it will cost twice as much to give a free, from a taxpayer perspective, to have free buses than it cost before. And they'll become more dangerous. More incidents will happen, more stabbings, more robberies. It's just, these are dumb policies. The fare is probably already subsidized. It's just, it just doesn't make any sense. None of Mamdani's ideas make sense. John has a very wise thing to say here. What happened to you that makes you hate people so much? Oh yeah, I hate people because I don't want their money to get their hard-earned money to get wasted by losers like this who give it to all their friends. What makes you hate people so much that you would want that to happen to them? That you would want somebody, what happens in socialist countries every single time? They think the capitalists are the bad guys, so they take their shit. And then what happens? Well, the bureaucrats all get rich. So you still have the rich class. It just becomes the politicians. Mamdani will be one of those guys. His friends will be those guys. The bureaucrats who make the laws will be those guys. The money never goes to the poor people. Only in capitalism does money get displaced down to poor people. There always will be the rich, there always will be the poor. What happens in a socialist country is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. All the while, the rich politicians are patting themselves on the back, acting like they're saving the poor people while they're stepping on their necks and while they have bread shortages and they can't get the things that they need because all the money's been siphoned off to the unproductive part of society, which is the political class. I mean, this is just economics 101. This is not hard to understand. And yet, because people are economically illiterate, they look at Zohran Mamdani and they think, oh, this makes sense because it's a bunch of nice words, none of which result in anything positive. You look at Venezuela, for example, in the 90s, Venezuela was the richest country in South America. They were wildly rich because of their oil. Hugo Chavez comes in the mid 90s, and now they're the poorest country in South America. You think that's an accident? They go socialist, they go broke. You think Hugo Chavez is broke? No, he's living in mansions, and his friends are all rich as hell. And all the normal people are in poverty, living in broken down houses, high crime, and hard to get access to healthy food. It happens every single time. Now, Mamdani is going to be able to get away with this because New York City is so rich that you can have a moron like this waste a bunch of money on stupid shit and still be okay. Because you'll still have charities and you'll still have these other organizations that still take care of homeless people, even though this guy's going to claim that he's doing it while he's throwing money into the void, never accomplishing anything. Hey, John, California actually has the 4th largest economy. They've moved up. You're outdated. So, here's another thing. This really gets me, this rent freeze thing, because this is something that's easy to sell people on, and it's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea.
Well, I'm proud to say that yes, will freeze the rent for more than 2 million rent stabilized tenants. And I will also build 200,000 truly affordable homes across the 5 boroughs over the next 10 years to ensure that tenants, whether rent stabilized or market rate, can actually have more housing such that they are not being priced out of this city. And finally, I'm also going to make it easier for the private sector to build housing in this city, because what we see today is that it's not labor, it's not materials, it's the weight that is often costing so much to actually build the housing we need in this city. Well, I'm proud to say that
Yeah. Well, so yeah, he wants to freeze the rent. And these always come with a little bit of complication, so I'm not exactly sure, and I don't think he's exactly sure what he means when he says freeze the rent. Are we just talking about government subsidized housing? Are we talking about, low income housing tax credit? Are we talking about, city of New York rent assistance freezes? Or are these specifically government funded, with like government loans and stuff, properties like that? Or that's probably what he's talking about, would be my guess. So if you have vouchers that you give to people and you'll say, this is the maximum amount of voucher that we're going to give to somebody to subsidize their rent, well, the landlord doesn't have to offer it to those people at that price because their insurance is going up, their property taxes are going up. And so I'm not sure what this will actually accomplish. Now, if this is just in government housing, yeah, I don't know, probably won't have much of an effect because it's already free for the people. So they don't really care. It's just going to, take money out of the landlord's pocket. But he claims he's going to build 200,000 new affordable homes. That is never, ever, ever going to happen. And I guarantee you it's going to cost millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to never actually get a house built. This is what happens when government's in control of free market stuff. They'll do study after environmental, after blah, 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 all this stuff. He doesn't have any land to build these houses on. So we probably try to eminent domain something. And then it'll be a legal case and all this taxpayer money will be wasted on it. He'll never accomplish any of it. It's just a talking point. And even if he did somehow make it to where they built 10,000 homes, which he'd guarantee you never will even get to that point, those houses will cost twice as much, I guarantee you, as if the private sector built them, because there's going to be tons of waste and fraud that goes into building these houses. And then how many of these houses are going to go to like illegal immigrants like they did in the UK, where they built new housing and then they put illegals in there? So it's none of this stuff actually ever works out in reality. He might as well say that he's going to, build a world-class, skyscraper, and he's going to just let poor people live in there, and he's going to make sure that they all become CEOs and millionaires. Like, what are you talking about? This is stupid. So now he's claiming that he's going to make the housing easier to build. I'd like to see how he's going to do that, because he's saying the problem is the weight. Well, the problem is that there's tons of environmental stuff. There's tons of city regulations. There's tons of zoning laws. And a socialist isn't going to change any of that stuff. If anything, he's going to put on more of that kind of thing. And he's going to make it more difficult to build anything. And then he's going to try to throw government money at it. And it's all going to get wasted and nothing's going to happen. So these kinds of policies are going to actually, they always result in the exact opposite thing of what they think is going to result. They think they're going to give free buses. Well, the buses get more expensive. They think that they're going to freeze the rent. Well, the rent gets more expensive. They think they're going to build more homes. Well, you end up with a shortage of homes. All this stuff. It's the exact opposite of everything that they want. That's what happens. We've seen it over and over and over again. And this is actually one of the reasons why the Democrat cities tend to have more homeless, because of their zoning laws, because they make it so difficult to make new housing, that there isn't any housing available because it's so difficult to build new housing or to convert existing housing or to renovate housing, because you have to bring it all up to these ridiculous standards. I was just listening to something the other day about California. So in the Palisades, where all those houses burnt down along the coast, these beautiful multi-million-dollar houses, right? They were there for like, I don't know, 80, 60, they're probably there for like 80 years. These weren't brand new houses. A lot of these were old houses built in 40s and 50s. They were built on telephone poles that were hammered down into the sand, and then that's the footing, and then they built the houses on top of that to stabilize them. And the houses were fine. Nothing happened. 80 years. Doesn't sound like a very solid foundation to me, but apparently it worked. And now when people want to rebuild it, they have to put in concrete footings that go down 6 stories into the ground. They're these massive cages that they fill with concrete, and they go down like 100 feet into the ground. So there's a massive expense, it costs millions and millions of dollars just to get these put in so that you can start building. Right? So you see how these laws and regulations, and sure, is there a good reason for it? Yeah, I guess. Earthquake prevention. There's always a good reason for it, to make things completely ridiculously incapable of being done. Like, well, we want you to build houses for $200,000, but we're going to put $500,000 worth of regulations of ridiculous stuff onto that house, but you're the bad guy for not building it for $200,000. It's because most of these politicians don't have a damn clue about how economics actually work. They are the most ignorant people. They don't know how. They've never been in business. The business people are out here doing business stuff. They're not being bureaucrats. And so these people like Zoran, who's never actually had a real job, never actually lived in the real world, comes from a rich family, wants to play savior to the poor, even though he's never been poor and doesn't know any poor people. He wants to come in here with these retarded policies and make everything better and be the savior, because he's cosplaying as somebody who knows what he's doing, but he's never actually done anything. He was a fake music rapper for a while, and that's about it. And so then, because he's got some personality, he's going to come in here. He's going to make everything worse. New York City's going to be fine because they're super rich, and they're going to be able to overcome the temporary pain of having a dumbass like this make the decisions and make everything worse for everybody. And of course, he's going to pat himself on the back and act like he did a bunch of good things when he actually just made everything worse. And that's how this game is played. So, oh yeah. This is Zoran now taking a shot at Cuomo because Cuomo hasn't visited any mosques. So let's take a look at this. This is.
It took Andrew Cuomo being beaten by a Muslim candidate in the Democratic primary for him to set foot in a mosque. He had more than 10 years, and he couldn't name a single mosque at the last debate we had that he visited. And what Muslims want in this city is what every community wants and deserves. They want equality, and they want respect. And it took me to get you to even see those Muslims as part of this city. And that, frankly, is something that is shameful and is why so many New Yorkers have lost faith in this.
So Zoran trying to shame Cuomo here with this multiculturalism tactic. You got to go and, have you been to a Buddhist temple? Have you done what? You must hate Buddhists. You must not care about the people in your city. Like, it's so low blow stupid shit. So what if he hasn't been to a mosque? So what? Who cares? He's not Muslim. Who cares? But Zoran knows that he can use this as some kind of weird, play on people's emotions, portray him as if he's some kind of hater of Muslims because he doesn't visit a mosque. How many? I hate this kind of stuff. I hate people like this. Genuinely do hate them because this is so unnecessary and uncalled for, and it's this entitled sort of attitude that Cuomo should go around. You have to go to every single thing and every single whatever or else you can't say anything about it. Well, Zoran's never driven a bus, yet he gets to have opinions about bus fare. He's probably never even ridden on a bus. He gets to have opinions about housing, even though he's never lived in low income housing. Right? It's so dumb. Oh yeah. So all kinds of fraud going on. Here's more fraud. This is a $14.5 million healthcare fraud scheme. There's a BLM leader who got arrested for fraud, and it's just these people just see government money as there for the taking. That's how they view it. They don't see it as being anybody's money. And this is how the Republicans are always talking about this. This is actually taxpayer money. These are real people, hard-earned money. And then you get people like these who just take it. So this is a $5 billion fraud scheme, Michigan Democrats. $5 billion. Where does that money go? I mean, it's not like you just put $5 billion into your bank account or something, or just take millions of dollars and put it in your bank account. How do they get rid of so much money so quickly? I don't understand really where it goes. They siphon it off somewhere. Somehow it's getting spent. But even if you're spending it on consultants it would take forever to get rid of that kind of money. And they do it so quickly. Is it offshore accounts? Is that what it is? Is it I don't know. And I guess I'm not a very good fraudster because I don't really understand how this stuff works. Because I've never considered it. John, do you have a job? I see. I make money. I do my work. I have a job. I'm not like Zoran. Or you apparently. This is something that I'll never understand. I've never seen such an embarrassing sight, selling out your country like this for YouTube likes. How am I selling out my country? By pointing out that socialism is a crock of shit? Socialism is selling out your country. And anyone who votes for Zoran is selling out their city. It's just as simple as that. It's straightforward. It's not that difficult. Just read an introduction to economics book and you'll understand that socialism can't work by necessity. It just can't. It never has and never will. Now, you can get away with a certain amount of socialism in a capitalistic country, right? And that's kind of what we do, where we siphon off some of the capitalists' money and we push it down to the bottom and give it to poorer people. That can kind of work as long as the capitalists are wildly successful, that you can hinder them, but because they're so successful, they can keep going in spite of that hindrance. Now, the real problem is when the productivity stops. That's when it's a problem, because now there's nobody to take the money from, because you're not making more, you're not producing, you're not increasing. So if you push it too high, then that's what will result. Let's say you got 80% capitalism, 20% socialism, you probably can get away with that. Reduce the productivity that much, but still have the productivity high enough to where you can absorb all the losses that socialism brings. So, John, did you try to call in? Did you try to click on that link? I'm curious what it does. It should show up here as you should be waiting in my guest room or something. Let me just see here. I think that's all you have to do is just click on that. Click on the pinned comment that I made. It should be at the top. If you're on YouTube, it should be at the top of the comment stream, at the top of the chat. I don't know what it looks like if you're listening on X. I don't know how that works. I'm not saying that they can. I mean, this is true. This isn't. Politicians can't solve this problem, John. It would be nice if they were competent enough to do something like that, but that's not possible. The problem is that the politicians caused this. The boomers caused this. When they got in power in the 90s and they gutted the U.S. economy because they wanted cheap shit from China and shipped all the factories, 90,000 factories closed since the mid-90s in the U.S. They shipped all the good-paying jobs out of the country so we could get cheaper lamps and coffee cups and toys. Now, all these great-paying manufacturing jobs left. And so we're left with stupid shit like working cash registers and service jobs that don't pay well. And that was a Democrat and Republican thing. That wasn't. Both of them are responsible for doing that. They didn't let capitalism work. They see that's what happens. The government gets their greedy, ignorant fingers into the economy, and they distort everything. Of course, we became the most powerful service economy on the earth because we're capitalists still. Yeah, and now we're at the end of that. There's only so much service economy that you can be. And the service jobs a lot of those are going away. AI is going to replace a lot of these service jobs, and we're going to be in a world of hurt. Well, now I kind of agree with this, John. I think you do have something there, but it wasn't just the capitalists. It was the capitalists. It was the corporatists. It was the corporations in cahoots with the politicians that sold out the country. That's what happened. The politicians encouraged it, made trade deals that made it easier and encouraged the factories to leave. The capitalists could have done it without the politicians, but it wasn't profitable. It didn't make sense for them to do it. They needed the politicians working hand in glove with them in order to do this. But John, you should just call in so we could chat instead of having to chat through the chat. Let's see what else we got here. I thought this was pretty interesting. It sure seems like most of the fraud's coming from the Democrat side.
In Michigan.
We've identified $5 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse in the state budget.
A lot of people are very, very concerned. Oh my gosh, to have a budget that's under $80 billion, you must have had to gut a lot. Nope, we didn't have to gut. We just had to cut 4,277 phantom jobs.
You guys realize what a scandal this is? People should be prosecuted for taking money that was appropriated to hire employees and using that money for other purpose entirely.
Gender reassignment surgeries for prisoners. There are programs in there that don't even exist, and they're funding them. Like the Starbase, I mean, that was eliminated a few years ago, and they still fund it. We get rid of the arts and culture grants. They're real waste. I mean, you look at what they are: glass blowing, barbershop quartets, all kinds of things. Really, it's incredible the things they got away with calling it arts and culture grants. See, that's why Winnie Brinks doesn't want to get in the room with me, because I know the budget in and out. I don't know it as well as Ann. So they know if Ann and I get in the room with Sarah Anthony and Winnie Brinks, we're going to get a great deal because we know the budget better than them.
Is that wild? $5 billion. Nobody can waste money like politicians. I mean, it's just crazy how fast they can get rid of money and get absolutely nothing done. I mean, I don't think you could find a billionaire who could blow through as much money as politicians can. You know, it's crazy that so they take this money from the capitalists, from the workers, from the business people, and then they just throw it in the garbage. And then they pat themselves on the back acting like they're doing something. It's wild to me. And it's wild to me that people are okay with it. I mean, honestly, this happens. It doesn't happen only in Democrat areas, obviously, but it's definitely much more common there because they have more programs, right? They have more of these, like, empathy-based help the people programs that never actually solve anything or help anybody. But they have a lot of them because it makes them feel good to have these programs. So they like to write bills like, feeding the children, blah, blah, blah. The children never get any more fed than they ever were. And somehow $500 million goes somewhere from taxpayers. That's what most of this stuff is. Now, see, they figured out the scam. And the scam is make an NGO or nonprofit that has such abstract and vague KPIs or key performance indicators, make them so vague that there's no way to actually measure them. Right? So it might be something like this arts and culture grant that he's talking about. Our goal is to encourage the expansion of arts in the community, to dispel arts knowledge and benefit to the children of the city, things like this. Which, how are you going to measure this? It's not like you're building a road and you're like, okay, we're going to put in 2 miles of road by December of 2027. Well, then December 2027 gets there, you're like, oh, you only put in 1 mile of road. You failed, right? That's a measurable goal. And so that's why these NGOs and stuff do things like, increasing the tangibility of dance in the lower echelons of Black communities, or something like that. And it's like, well, there's no way to measure any of this stuff. And so the money goes there and then it goes somewhere else. Nothing ever happens because there never was any intention of anything to happen. And the CEOs of these nonprofits, the consultants, walk away with all the money. So I think most of these NGOs just need to be shut down. You know, shit, I don't care. Make them all legal. Get rid of all of them. There's trillions of dollars of waste with these people. And then make these people who run these NGOs go out and get a real job to actually contribute something to the economy instead of taking from the economy with these fake jobs and these fake job titles. $44,277 fake phantom jobs to fund fake programs. Yeah. Gender surgeries for prisoners. You know, yeah, all this, none of this stuff's measurable. You know, like, okay, how many gender well, we don't know, but it's for the option to have this, you know. I've been on boards and parts of nonprofits, and this is how a lot of this stuff goes when they're looking for grant money. You know, everything is so vague, it's unclear what the goal even is or how you're going to measure it. But if it sounds virtuous enough and it sounds empathetic enough and it sounds like it's going to benefit, you know, the people who have been disadvantaged, then that's all you need. You don't need to actually accomplish anything or convince them that you're going to accomplish anything. They want to know when they're giving you the grant that they can feel good about themselves for giving you the grant because it sounds like it's going to a good cause. And this is all it is. And I guarantee you 70% of the people involved in this are women, running a lot of these NGOs and nonprofits and siphoning off all this money and giving it to their friends, because that kind of BS, you know, play on your emotions, it's going to work better with them. It's just a fact. Let's see what else we got here. Fraud. A lot of fraud. Okay, coming back to that. Oh, old lady liberals. That's always funny. Don Lemon. Oh, I want to get back to that. That's something we need to talk about is Supreme Court. AOC. Okay, well, this guy here, he ties into kind of what we're talking about with.
What do we do to make life better for everybody? We certainly have enough. I mean, we just created the most number of billionaires in the history of the world. You know, we have enough. We could do this, but it's going to take some reimagining of what America is, what our economic system is. What's clear is it's not working and it's not sustainable.
Actually, when our founding fathers set this up, they had the national motto of e pluribus unum, out of many one.
Yes.
And we've never achieved that.
No.
There's a long time we didn't even vaguely even strive for that. But we can still strive.
The vision of America, the promise of America, we still have that. We have that promise in our DNA. Someone slipped that in there, which creates a possibility for it, right? That's like the moment we're in right now. It's physics. Things have got to come to a point where there's so much movement. It's chaotic. Boom, up. Something new comes out of it. Water to steam. There's no other way to actually change. And that's painful. It's like giving birth. I mean, birth is painful. It's dark. We don't know. It's scary. Will it ever end, you know?
Okay. Well, if you could understand most of that, you're smarter than I am, because a lot of that's just gobbledygook nonsense, stupid shit. But essentially, you know, Mark Ruffalo, this is what I find this so funny. When I watch these Hollywood types, because they're so out of touch, you know, like, so this guy becomes who knows, has $100 million, right? And he's acting like the system doesn't work. Well, he's the one who benefited from the system his whole life. And now he's not giving his money to anybody. He's not he's happy to be able to do whatever he wants to do, to be rich. Capitalism makes him rich, and then he slams capitalism. It doesn't make any sense because he's not going to be giving up any of his money. None of these people ever do. You know, if people like him would actually start nonprofits and give half their wealth to the nonprofits and watch over them, make sure the money's not getting wasted, it would be so much better than talking about this. Those people out there need to make laws and create NGOs and give money to poor people, because it just doesn't work. But, you know, there's no shortage of people who basically are capitalists. He wanted to get paid based on his performance. And that's how he got paid, and he was happy to get paid that way. And now that he's made his bag and he's rich and he can sit up on his pedestal, he wants to act like the whole system needs reimagining. And almost all this is kind of why it's like if you get too rich, you lose touch with reality, and then you become a socialist. And it's kind of what Marx was talking about too, this kind of flow of how this works. And but it just always strikes me as strange, because he would not have been happy in a socialist system because he would have never made any money. He wouldn't have been an actor. He wouldn't have been able to do what he loves. This guy would be out, collecting seashells off the beach to try to sell his trinkets to scrape by, so it just seems he should be wanting more people to be able to gain access to the system that he benefited from, right? So wanting to change the system is just going to prevent people from getting access to the system that made him rich. But anyway, let's listen to what AOC has to say. I'm sure it's going to be brilliant.
Rivers in rural areas were on fire because of corporations poisoning the people who lived in those areas. Poor middle-class communities getting poisoned and dumped on by corporations like Deloitte and 3M, pouring chemicals into these places. And they want to call it a democratic priority. Rivers in rural areas were on fire.
Oh, gosh. Deloitte is dumping chemicals into rivers and they're starting on fire. She doesn't even know what Deloitte is. I guarantee it. Deloitte's an accounting firm. What are they dumping ink into the rivers? Why? She's Deloitte, it's poisoning the rivers. She sounds like the liberal version of Alex Jones. And then they made the frogs gay. Deloitte, all of its toxic waste. Deloitte, that's good. I love it. She's so bad. I think every Republican hopes that she runs for president because she'll make so many of these gaffes. It'll be super entertaining. She just can't help herself, that and maybe, I don't know. Zoran doesn't do that. He's much better at it. He still says stupid shit, but he doesn't say stuff that's that stupid. She, I think, gets flustered or something and she can't think straight. And sort of reminds me a lot of like how Joe Biden back in his younger years when he would talk. I remember watching presidential debates and stuff, and he would just say the stupidest stuff. It was hilarious. He put his foot in his mouth all the time. So now we have some. Now we know why Pritzker is so interested in keeping Trump out of his state. Because, apparently they got a bunch of legals. They're hiring them to be their police officers even. Let's take a look at this.
Let's do breaking news now. Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement has just revealed in the last short time a police officer working in Illinois is an illegal immigrant. Radule Bajovic works for the Hanover Police Department. He graduated from the academy in August, but he has been living in the U.S. illegally for a decade after his tourist visa expired in 2015. His illegal status was discovered as part of Operation Midway. So we wanted to bring you the very latest on that.
Just doesn't, it never stops, So this guy, how does an illegal immigrant get a government job? Is there no background check whatsoever? Like, who's vetting these people? How many of these must there be? We just randomly happen to find this guy. And we're being policed by illegal aliens. That is crazy. This guy's probably got a pension set up in his name. He took a job from somebody who is a citizen. Now we know why Pritzker doesn't want Trump there. Who knows what kind of rot there is going on there? Because nobody's watching over anything. There's nobody. Brandon Johnson is the dumbest person in politics. His approval rating, his disapproval rating is like 96%. His approval rating's 4%. He's completely incompetent. Nobody's overseeing this stuff. And so you get illegals driving trucks and now being apparently police officers. How does this happen? And it's always in blue cities. Always, 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 always. It's like 99-1. Pritzker didn't make $1 billion. It was a family business. Basically, and they kicked him out because he was so incompetent. If that guy can be a cop, can my cat? I swear, no need to. She's legal. I swear, no need to check. Yeah, well, probably in Chicago, because that's probably how they roll. Your cat can't really arrest anybody, so that's the kind of cops they're looking for, because you got to protect the criminals. The criminals are just they're like up here, and the citizens are down here. And whatever we can do for the criminals to give them a better life, that's what we're interested in doing. And if Trump wants to come in there and clean up the crime to protect the innocent citizens from it, then no way. How dare you come in and arrest criminals? It's just crazy. It's such a ridiculous worldview. It's such a, it's not surprising that Brandon Johnson's approval rating is, 4% or 6%, depending on what poll you look at. It's not surprising because this guy is as corrupt as the day is long. He's incompetent. He couldn't even run a lemonade stand if he tried. And yet somehow he becomes the mayor. No qualifications, no abilities, no talents, no competence. Change the statistics to make it look like, change how you record crime to make it look like you've solved crime. This is how these people solve problems, right? They lie, they cheat, they rig things, and then they claim that they're competent and that they've accomplished things. Happened in DC, happens all the time in California. They think that people are so stupid they're not going to catch on to this stuff. And for a long time, they could get away with it because we didn't have things like X, or ways to find out real information and real reporting. And you had the national media would just run cover for these guys. All they would do is they would take their numbers and they would say, look, crime's going down in Chicago, even though in reality the crime hasn't gone down. It's just they decided to record the crimes differently, not include certain things in certain categories. So it looks like the homicide rate goes down, looks like the robberies have gone down. But that's just because the robberies have been downgraded to misdemeanors, because now we say that if it's under $1,000, that's a misdemeanor. It's not really a crime. And so then it looks like the criminal activity goes down, and it really doesn't. As anybody who's lived in Chicago can tell you. So anyway, too many illegals. I find this kind of funny from Don Lemon. Now, I'm not real familiar with Don Lemon. I see his clips every now and again, and I saw this clip that he posted the other day, and I've seen a few of these actually, where he's going around, he's interviewing people on the street, and he's asking them about, like conditions in Chicago or ICE raids and stuff like that. And a lot of the people that he interviews, because Don Lemon's not really in favor of any of this stuff, but the people that he interviews will say, oh, thank God Trump's here because he's going to, clean up the city, and we need the city cleaned up, and we're glad that he's here. And what impresses me is that Don Lemon actually will put those on his channel, even though it's not what he wants them to say. He's not cherry picking the interviews necessarily and just cutting out all those people and just only putting the interviews on there. The people saying Trump sucks, he's ruining our city and he doesn't care, and fascism and Nazi and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't do that. He's got tons of people who are saying that they love Trump and that they are glad that he's cleaning up their city and they want illegals deported and stuff like that. So I got to give him credit for that. That's pretty impressive. A lot of people don't do that. So I got to give him kudos for doing that. So John, you live in Chicago? Yeah, South Side? Guarantee you don't. And it's funny too when they show pictures of Chicago being clean, like at first when Trump was threatening to send people in there, they'd walk along the water, or the downtown district and all the touristy places. And they're like, what? Look at how clean this place is. It's like, well, nobody claims that there's a bunch of crime going on in the richest parts of the city. Nobody's claiming that. But so see, this is the kind of stuff that I just don't understand. It seems to me that if you actually cared about the Black community, you would clean up the crime. 98% of the people who live in these high crime areas, in these primarily Black areas, 98% of these people are not criminals. They're normal people who want to live in a normal neighborhood, who don't want to be scared that a stray bullet's going to shoot their kid, who don't have to worry about their car getting stolen in the middle of the night, who just want to be able to walk around and take their kids for a walk and go to the park and go to the store. So the best thing you could do for the vast majority of the Black community is to go in there heavy-handed with police and to stop the criminals who are terrorizing everybody, all the normal, innocent people who have to live amongst this crap. And yet, Democrats don't want to do that. They think somehow that's racist. It's racist to let these gangs run wild and kill innocent people. Because they're Black people, you don't care. That's ridiculous. If they clean up the crime, people would open businesses. It would allow the normal citizens there to be able to open businesses because they know they're not going to get vandalized and all their shit stolen the second they do it and then go bankrupt. They'd have a sense of safety and security, so they could buy cheap buildings because the property prices are low. They could open up their electrician business or plumbing business or whatever. They could open up their shop, could safely be secured and know that that investment of money and time is going to be safe and secure and long term. But now they can't do that. You put your supplies in there, they break the windows, they steal everything. So who's going to open a business in this area? Nobody. And so then everything just goes backwards, down and down, down, and it becomes this self-reinforcing spiral downwards. And a lot of it has to do with crime as the very first step to making these investable, safe communities that are attractive to people. So anyway, let's see what Don has to say here. This is about ICE agents. He's encouraging people to get guns.
Black people, brown people of all stripes, whether you're an Indian American or a Mexican American or whoever you are, go out in your place where you live and get a gun legally, get a license to carry legally. Because when you have people knocking on your door and taking you away without due process as a citizen, isn't that what the Second Amendment was written for? Go back and read what the Second Amendment says. And perhaps it will knock some sense in the heads of these people who are saying, well, it's all great. I don't believe they're doing it without due process. They're asking people for papers. They're not really beating people up. These people are doing things that are illegal. Nobody is illegal. It is a misdemeanor to cross the border. Now, black people, brown people.
All right. Well, I always wonder if, like the brown people are offended by the term brown people. I don't know. It just seems like a weird thing to call people from India and people from South America. Like you just lump them all together in this brown people category. I don't know. It just seems weird. I don't know. It's just like kind of sounds racist to me, honestly. And so, but people use it all the time now. Brown people, I don't know. It seems strange. But anyway, so Don Lemon here, he's encouraging black people and brown people to go get guns legally. And I mean, I guess I thought he was some real liberal guy. And now here he's like all about the Second Amendment. This is kind of a weird mind twist here. He probably rails and wants gun control constantly. And then when it comes to this issue, now he's all totally pro Second Amendment. But this is the thing that doesn't make any sense, right? So ICE is not taking legal people. They're taking illegal people. And illegal people cannot get a gun legally. So this is such a stupid argument and stupid point for him to make. It's like, if illegal aliens cannot get legal guns, so this has nothing to do with them protecting themselves from ICE. So Don, what are you even talking about? This is such a dumb argument. And I mean, legal brown people and black people, go ahead. Yeah, great. I encourage it too. Go get yourself guns. It's not going to do you make any difference with ICE because they're not coming for you. So what? This is a stupid argument. Anyway, Don's pretty good at stupid arguments, though. I've come to learn. So it's kind of one of the things he does. See, this is the part of the problem here. What is going on in Charlotte? What is going on there? I see these stories all the time. These where these people are arrested constantly. This is 15 arrests. And they probably have spent a total of like a month in jail for all these arrests. And they just keep letting them out. And it's specifically, I see these in Charlotte constantly. And that's where the Irina Zarutska, that's where she was killed. That guy had been arrested, however, just like this. And it's like, until they commit a murder, they're just normal people, right? Never a concern for who the person is who's going to get murdered. They don't care about those people. They care that this lady is getting, you know, her living her best life by allowing her to just break all the rules and have no consequences. She was arrested for stabbing 2 people. She was released a few hours later on a $20,000 bond. At least they had a bond. They didn't just make her sign a paper that says, "Oh, I'll be a good girl from now on and I'll show back up in a few days." 15 prior arrests, including for violent offenses. Charlotte must have the stupidest judges and magistrates in the whole country. I guarantee, and I think that this is true because I think I looked this up at one point. They're all Democrat judges and magistrates. Now, that shouldn't surprise anybody because only Democrats do stupid shit like this, you know. But this pro-crime policies are not, they're not working. Okay. They're causing lots of people, lots of problems, and there's lots of harm and damage going on. And when will Democrats actually take this seriously? How does this help their cause? I don't get it. Is this some way of like getting the black community's vote or something like that? And they think that if they just keep letting them out, then they'll vote for them or something. I don't understand. Like, is it a prison population overcrowding problem that they're trying to keep the prison population low? And so they keep letting, you know, these people back out onto the streets because they don't have room for them. I don't know. It doesn't seem rational. It doesn't seem logical to do this. This person's obviously a lifetime criminal who's obviously going to commit another crime. And that crime comes with a victim, most likely an innocent victim. And I don't think they even think about the victims. I don't think that even crosses their mind when they're letting these people out. They're probably, you know, they've drunk the Kool-Aid that they were probably arrested for racial reasons, probably by a white cop, and it wasn't even a fair arrest. And so she hasn't actually ever done anything wrong because it's all been so biased or something stupid like that. And then you got these judges that are, you know, 70-year-old white liberals, white guy liberals who think that they're like, you know, leveling the field of racial justice, you know, and by letting this lady out again to commit more crimes against innocent people, and somehow that's a better thing. It's just so stupid. It's nonsensical. It will never make any sense to me. This person shouldn't be allowed out into society. Plain and simple. Done. End of conversation. Lock her up. If you've got 15 violent offenses, you have no business being part of our society. You obviously can't handle it. You obviously got something wrong, probably mental health issues. And so we're not interested in what you have to offer. We're not interested in you because you don't provide anything. You only take and you only destroy. So get your ass in prison. We'll pay for you there so that we don't have to deal with you out here in society. You know, I hate these judges who let these people out. Or like the lady who let out the killer for Irina Zarutska. She was a magistrate. She's appointed by a judge, no legal experience, runs a drug rehabilitation center, and has the power to demand people go to use it. You know, so you've got all these layers of corruption and incentives to allow crime. And that lady still has her job. She left somebody out who had no business being out, whose mother begged them to keep him in prison. She lets him out. He slits somebody's throat, kills him on the train, and no consequences. No consequences for her. We've got to do something with judicial immunity. These judges cannot just allow murderers back out onto the streets to terrorize innocent people. And if they do, and if it's reasonable that they should have kept them in prison, and they let somebody out who goes kill somebody, that judge should go to prison. It has to. They have no consequences, and they've become so corrupt and ridiculous that it's time that they pay for it. And I don't think that that's a controversial thing. I think most people would agree with me. Why everybody else has consequences for their actions? Why don't these judges have consequences? They're aiding and abetting these criminals. Oh, old white ladies. This is basically the face of the Democrat Party right here these days. and the guys that are married to them. And that's about it. And then you got some weird young blue-haired, nose-pierced mental health problems who also were in the party. But basically everybody else has left the Democrat Party. You know, because they're the party of the whack jobs, the corruption, the irrationality. All the men are leaving. No men want anything to do with the Democratic Party, except the simps and stuff like that who just act like they're, you know, saviors of the downtrodden, but really just to impress, you know, women and make themselves feel like they're moral and all this kind of nonsense. Let's take a look at what these old ladies have to say. I'm sure it's going to be really insightful and really like going to just blow your mind at how.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, community. We are your neighbors and friends, and some of us are family members, have family members from your community with ours, and we're out teaching people, especially the white people, how they can help defend everybody when they go out shopping or they have an errand to do, how to stop the ICE and the people in the masks that are kidnapping people. We don't want that. That's wrong, okay? So we're out here. We do this every week. We teach people, and then those people go and teach other people. So we are doing what we can, and we love you. Yeah, and here.
There you go. So,
Cece.
Nombres, names?
I'm Pam.
Pam?
I'm a retired nurse.
Carolyn, I'm a retired veterinarian.
Diana, I'm a retired nurse. Sue, I'm a retired insurance agent.
Okay, guys, if you have any questions, you can contact them. Which phone number so they can contact you? Or
I mean, it's so funny. These old ladies, they think they're really doing something. They think they're protesting Vietnam or in a march, you know, from the back of the 60s and 70s. I swear these people are trying to relive their glory days, and that's why they're at all these protests. They have nothing better to do. They they think they're changing the world, you know, by holding a sign outside of an ICE facility. It's so out of touch. It's just the craziest thing, you know, these boomer old ladies who really pride themselves in being open-minded. I guarantee you all these ladies are going straight back to an all-white neighborhood, probably with a gate around it. And that's the hypocrisy of these people. They don't actually know any of these people. They don't actually care. They don't actually, in their real lives, associate with anybody other than old white liberals. And yet they think that they're the ones who are open-minded and love diversity. They're the least diverse group. it's just, they're so dumb. You know, I don't know. It's hard for me to even put it in words. It's just so obviously ridiculous. You know, I'll see these videos all the time of these protesters. And there's not a single one who's in their 40s. You know, it's like you've got these 70-year-old liberals. You got this huge gap, and then you've got some of these 20-year-old chicks that are dressed weird, and that's it. And these people think that they have any power. They think they're going to win elections. They're going to get steamrolled. It's not even going to be close. Which, oh hey, yeah, that's a good segue. That leads me into this next thing about the Supreme Court. Wow, have you guys been paying attention to this? This has been wild. There's been, for the last few days now, arguing over the Voter Rights Act, Section 2, primarily, about how the Democrats, well, not necessarily the Democrats, but the way the law was written to encourage districting along racial lines so that Black people would have more representation, or would have representation in Congress and not have to rely on white community to vote in Black members, things like that. So basically the Supreme Court is going to rule that those days are done, essentially. We don't need these racist districting lines anymore, because we have, as a society, have moved past that kind of stuff. At least that's from what I understand, kind of what the idea is. And that according to the Constitution, this is, it's racist. But what's really fascinating is how many of these seats. So just looking at the title here, it's looking like the Supreme Court's going to strike down the racist voting rights congressional districts. It means Republicans could gain 12 seats and Democrats lose 12 seats. That's a net gain of 24 for the Republicans. So the Republicans would go up 12 seats, the Democrats would go down 12 seats. That is huge. That's just wild. And that's not even including the redistricting that's happening, which will probably result in, let's say, seven more seats for the Republicans, 7 to 9. So now you're talking something like 30 to 32 GOP seats gained. It's just so funny to me. You know, Democrats tried so hard for so long to rig the system in their favor, and then it's just all coming apart in a matter of 1 year. It's just unraveling, and their heads are spinning, and they just can't believe it. You got Gavin Newsom claiming he's going to do something about it. It's not going to make a damn bit of difference. There's only a few seats that they can gerrymander because they've already, over the last 30 years, gerrymandered all their districts to get the Democrats the most amount of seats as possible. And now here with the swoop of a pen, the Supreme Court is going to undo all of those 30 years worth of work. I love it. I love it. And, you know, it doesn't, to think that white people are not going to represent Black people's interests is just a ridiculous thing to say. You know, it's not like, I mean, white people vote for Black people all the time. It's not, this isn't a thing anymore. We had a Black president, got elected twice, ended with a 60% approval rating, got overwhelming votes, mostly by white people. You know, so this idea that we still need these racist districts, race-based districts, is a thing of the past, and I think that it's the right thing to do. So, you know, it's obviously unconstitutional. You know, a lot of the civil rights era things was sort of like in spite of the Constitution, because they're trying to level out historical injustices. And so, well, in this case, we can kind of make this thing a little racist because it's going to help offset some of the racist policies that we had in the past. And so we'll go racist this way because they were racist that way. And so they've I think that we've moved past that, and we can start upholding the Constitution and get rid of these kinds of things. It's not like, but obviously the Democrats are not going to be happy about this. They're going to claim, Trump bad, Trump Hitler, fascism, Nazi, all this, the normal nonsense that they say. And so, but they can do that all they want, and we can just laugh at them because there's nothing they can do about it other than name call. And that's about all they've done for the last year, is just name call, because they don't have any substance to their arguments. They don't have anything they're really fighting for, just fighting against Trump. That's basically their whole platform. Trump bad, boo-hoo, I'm sad, cry, cry, cry. And that's it. And that's why they just have a bunch of old ladies left in their movement, in the Democrat Party. So let's see what else we got here. Maybe that's the end of my list. Oh, okay. No, there's this one. I think this one's kind of funny too. This is there. See, this is the depth of the Democrat Party these days. They're out here in their protest, having given a press conference to show how much they care about these minority communities and the marginalized, and all these buzzwords that they've been using now for 15 years. And they're super mad that a rainbow colored crosswalk is going away. So they had to assemble and make their voices heard, because this is such a super important thing in our world.
We are Houston. We are queer. We love ourselves for it. It's fun to be out. It's fun to be queer in Houston. And if they do pick up this sidewalk, you'll have a promise
Focus
from
on
me
the
that I'm going to work
stupidest shit.
every single day until the day we gather right back here and paint it back.
If we lose the battle and we have to take this off the street, you put it on your house.
Paint your house in rainbow colors. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to be doing that.
You go and put it on a yard sign. You roll down the street and stick it out your car window. Whatever angle they come up with, we have to find another.
The state is on the edge of a major recession. It is coming. And our governor is ignoring it like he ignores all the problems. And instead, we're talking about this. Instead, we're talking about paint.
So even this guy thinks this is a stupid issue. Wow, look at that. He just told them all. He's like, what are we doing here? We're just talking about paint. This is stupid. We should actually be talking about economics of our... Hey, I agree. Yeah, this is a stupid thing to be all butthurt about.
This is them trying to sow disrespect and exclusion, but not here in Houston, Texas, not here in Harris County, Texas. We know we're on the right side of history.
So if you don't allow a rainbow-colored crosswalk, you're now excluding them. How? They don't have... There's no rights that are being taken away. There's nothing. See, this is the Democrat Party, and especially this group here. This is why I think they think in terms of mythology, not in terms of like facts or practical anything. It's all this mythological language where there's these symbols, and the symbols carry all this weight because the symbol means this thing over here. And so like, it's a very religious kind of mythological way of viewing the world, because nothing actually is going to change in the lives of any LGBTQ plus person if there's paint on the ground that they like versus paint that they don't like. But they think that somehow this is causing these ramifications out there in the ether that's going to affect, this future event and that future event and oppression and all this kind of stuff because of paint on the ground, because of a symbol.
and the right side of justice, we will pursue every angle that we can.
For someone looking from the outside, they're saying, well, this is just paint, but this is so much more. And this is taking a real toll
This is so much more
on
than
residents in this neighborhood and on our LGBTQIA plus community. We are hearing from them.
So, you know, this is what these people spend their time doing. You can live your lives. Nobody's oppressing you. Nobody cares anymore if you're LGBTQ, you know, go fine, whatever. We don't have to paint sidewalks for you. We don't have to put up statues for you or murals for you or spend taxpayer money on making you, you know, like the color of a sidewalk or get over yourselves. This is so self-absorbed, you know, and it's like, why I don't know. These are city public areas, you know, the public gets to decide. And what does happen actually a lot of times with these painted stuff, they get super slick, things like that. So there are some practical reasons why you wouldn't want it to be painted, and they don't last and they need constant maintenance and things like that. But so yeah, I think that's probably about all I've got here. John, I'm not gonna. You have like thousands of comments here. I'm not gonna respond to every comment you have because would just be super annoying to anybody else watching. So, and you're just kind of trolling, and you're not really very sharp in some of the things you're saying. So, you know, there's not a whole lot of content there. So, yeah, boring. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's going to be it for me today. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.